Are you ready to see a written-off quarterback steal the show in Seattle? Because, my friend, the Seahawks preseason is turning into a storyline nobody saw coming, and it starts with the unlikely Sam Darnold. This is Ethan Carter, and I gotta ask you, are we looking at a tactical rebirth, or is this just a flash in the pan? Meanwhile, a bombshell out of Dallas could totally transform our defense. Micah Parsons has asked out, and there's more. DeMarcus Lawrence has become the alpha in the locker room and is teaching the rookies how to be monsters. And speaking of rookies, Nick Emenwari is playing like he was born for this. And on top of that, he's already becoming a hero to the kids. What is going on with this roster? Is this a culture shift, a new era, or just smoke and mirrors? Stick with me, because what we're seeing might be bigger than it looks. Could this be the Seahawks team we've always dreamed of seeing? All right, my fellow Seattle Seahawks fans, before we get into all the details from this Sunday with the latest on our team, I've got to ask you for a favor. If you're watching the Seahawks Insider Report and you dig our analysis but you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely crucial for the channel and for helping our community of Seahawks fans keep on growing. Thanks so much for your support. Forget everything you thought you knew about Sam Darnold. The dude is playing like it's the last chance of his life. And maybe it is. What we saw at Seahawks training camp wasn't just a quarterback getting the ball out faster. It was a veteran desperate to prove he can still be a starter in a league that already slapped the bust label on him. Brock Huard, former Seahawks QB and analyst for Seattle Sports, watched the practices up close and laid it all out. The ball wasn't touching the ground. It was just popping off his hand. It was all anticipation. According to Hurd, during warm-ups, drills, and 7-on-7s, Darnold stood out in a way that was almost jarring, like the game was in slow motion just for him. Drew Lock looked a step slower, while Jalen Milroe was still living that normal rookie nightmare, hesitation, late reads, and that fear of making a mistake that just makes your arm lock up. The whole scene is almost symbolic. Darnold, with all the pressure of a failed pass, is just letting the ball rip, quick, precise, no hesitation. Meanwhile, Milroe, with all the youth in the world, holds on too long, tries to be perfect, and fails because of it. And that's where it gets real. This shift in command isn't just about talent. It's about maturity, urgency, and above all, attitude. Geno Smith is yesterday's news. Drew Lock seems destined to be a career backup. So what's left? A locker room that's slowly starting to look at Darnold with that what if look in their eyes. What if he really is the right guy for Clint Kubiak's system? What if the scheme of play action, quick passes, and bootlegs fits his lightning-fast release time perfectly? The narrative is there. The stage is set. And even though it's still just training camp, the confidence Darnold is putting out there isn't fake. And you, the fan, you're starting to wonder, are we watching the birth of a historic comeback? Or is this just another rehearsal that's going to fizzle out when the lights come on for real? What nobody can deny is that, right now, Darnold has become a serious conversation in Seattle. And if you think the QB battle ends there, just wait until you see what could happen if a certain defensive monster actually comes to town. When one of the biggest defensive talents in the NFL publicly says he wants out, the world stops. And that's exactly what Micah Parsons did. No beating around the bush, no reading between the lines. The Cowboys' pass rusher blew up social media and made it clear he doesn't want to play in Dallas anymore. The reason? Money, respect, and maybe, just maybe, a culture that doesn't speak to him anymore. And that's where Seattle comes in. Because while other franchises are gonna scramble with ridiculous offers, one analyst from Sports Illustrated named the Seahawks as the most realistic landing spot to bring this defensive unicorn home. Matthew Schmidt suggested an aggressive package. Send Derek Hall, a first-round pick and a third-round pick. And I know it sounds steep, but think about it. Parsons is 25 years old, a former Defensive Rookie of the Year, a 3-time All-Pro, a 4-time Pro Bowler, and has never had a season with fewer than 12 sacks. And you know how long it's been since Seattle had an edge rusher with double-digit sacks? 2018. Frank Clark. That hurts. The Seahawks defense, even though it was solid in total yards last year, is missing a game wrecker, a destroyer, a tone setter, and that's where Parsons fits like a glove. With Mike McDonald at the helm, who's known for creating dynamic and creative schemes, Parsons could have the same impact he had with Dan Quinn, or even bigger. Imagine the guy lining up standing up, with the freedom to attack gaps inside or out, switch sides, drop back into the second level. It would be a nightmare for any O-line. Now, yes, the cost is a serious issue, because on top of the high draft picks, there's a massive contract coming. Parsons wants to be the highest paid defender in the league, but sometimes you gotta pay the price for that kind of talent. And this is one of those rare cases where the return could justify everything. What's more, Derek Hall is promising, but he's still raw. And if there's a real window to compete hard right now, you can't afford to wait on long-term development, especially with guys like DeMarcus Lawrence on the roster, a dude who's already proven he's ready to lead and groom the young guys. Oh, and speaking of him, if Parsons shows up, the reunion with Lawrence, his former D-line teammate from Dallas, would be explosive both on and off the field. So, you veteran fans, are you willing to pay that price? Is this the move we need to get back the defensive respect we lost after the Legion of Boom fell apart? Because if this trade happens, Seattle's new identity could be born in fire and blood. But that, of course, is only if the locker room has space for that much ego and personality. And that's exactly the kind of leadership that's being built right now by a familiar face. A vet who is already changing this roster's DNA from day one. Do you remember what it was like to have a guy on defense who commanded respect just by stepping on the field? That leader who didn't have to scream because his presence spoke louder than any speech? Well, it looks like that guy is back in Seattle, and his name is DeMarcus Lawrence. The 33-year-old vet showed up with some people doubting him, coming off foot surgery and with more than a decade in the league. But what he's doing in training camp is just insane. It's not just the raw strength, like when he picked up Abe Lucas, a 324-pound lineman, and shoved him like he was a grocery bag. It's the intensity, the focus, and the voice he's become on the field. Mike McDonald, our new head coach, didn't mince words. He's the best practice player I've ever been around, and that's coming from a guy who's coached Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith. That's not an exaggeration. Lawrence is treating every single rep like it's the Super Bowl. Every drill, every shout, every correction. And the impact goes way beyond the field. He's teaching the rookies, grabbing veterans by the jersey, and demanding perfection in every single detail. During one practice, after an offsides penalty, he yelled, "If you jump, you switch. If you mess up, you're out." That's not arrogance, that's a standard. And Seattle has been missing that for a long, long time. We've had great players on defense in recent years, but not all of them were vocal leaders. Bobby Wagner, a legend, but always kind of quiet. Tyler Lockett, a quiet, led-by-example guy, but without that command presence. Lawrence is different. He talks, he demands, he inspires. Leonard Williams, who's no stranger to a pro locker room, put it plainly. He's a dog. He outworks the rookies. He talks. He leads. He sets the example. He's the type of dude you want to follow. And here's the best part. He's healthy. And more than that, he's got that fire in his eyes. He didn't come here to coast or quietly retire. He came here to transform things. He came to give an identity to a unit that, let's be real, lost its soul after the boom era, and his influence is infectious. The O-linemen are getting better because they have to go all out against him. The rookies are paying closer attention because they know any mistake will become a lesson, and the coaching staff already knows they have an extra coach on the field. Now just imagine if Micah Parsons lines up next to him. Can you even picture that destruction? But hold on. Before we dream about the future, it's worth looking at a present that's already full of bright signs. And among the brightest is a name that came out of nowhere, took over the field, and the hearts of the fans too. Because when a 21-year-old rookie flies through the air to pick off a pass, runs to the sideline, and gets kids screaming and starters cheering, you know something special is starting. There are some things you just can't teach. It doesn't come from a playbook, a stopwatch, or endless drills. It's instinct. It's presence. It's that aura that makes a 21-year-old kid look like a 10-year vet. Nick Emenwari has it. And he's proving day after day that he wasn't a second-round pick by accident. At the 8th practice of training camp, on a day dedicated to kids, he turned into a movie star. He picked off a deep pass from fellow rookie Jalen Milroe with a cinematic diving grab, stretching his 6'3" frame through the air like a bolt of lightning. He popped up, sprinted diagonally across the entire field, and went straight to the fence where the fans were watching. Devin Witherspoon and Rick Woolen, our starting corners, ran over to celebrate with him. And Emin Worry, he just smiled, took pictures, and signed a football for a little kid who couldn't believe it. That right there wasn't just a highlight. It was the birth of a new character in the Seahawks story. And it wasn't a one-off play. It was his second interception of the week. In the other one, he faked a blitz, dropped back into coverage, and picked off Milroe again, this time taking it all the way to the end zone. Mike McDonald, our head coach, is literally playing mad scientist with this guy. He's already used him as a deep safety, an outside linebacker, put him in the flat, in the middle, sent him on a blitz, and he's still exploring new ideas. But at the same time, he's being careful. You've got to be careful. You don't coach the instinct out of the player. You got to give them the command, but you've got to let them go create. Coming from a coach with a military background, that's practically poetry. And that's exactly what's happening. Emin Worry is a poem of controlled aggression. He executes, he learns, he corrects, he repeats. And he never loses that smile. He never loses his focus. Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, and the other vets in the secondary are embracing the kid, guiding him, polishing him. But the truth is, Emin Worry is already part of the main defensive game plan. He's not a project anymore. He's a real piece. And the scariest part? He doesn't even seem to realize how big this is. For McDonald, the comparison to Kyle Hamilton, who he coached in Baltimore, isn't a stretch. He's a fun guy to coach. He's always receptive. He's always ready. Emin Worry is capturing the essence of what the Legion of Boom was: talent, intensity, and charisma. The difference is he's been doing it since day one. Now you combine that with the influence of DeMarcus Lawrence and, just maybe, the arrival of Micah Parsons. And you start to see a new defense being born, a renewed identity. And speaking of rebirth, there's a name on the offensive line who's also starting to show he might be more than just a complementary piece. A guy who stoned DeMarcus Lawrence twice in a row and who might just solve one of the biggest holes in our offense since last year. Something's different in Seattle, and it's not just on the depth chart. The truth is, the Seahawks are moving past being a team in reconstruction and are slowly becoming a battleground between the past and the future. Darnold has reignited the most sacred fight in football, the starting quarterback job. Parsons could completely redefine our defense if he gets here. Lawrence is already doing it. And Emin Worry. That kid didn't just knock on the door, he kicked it straight down. But none of it, not a single bit of it matters if the team keeps living off of flashes in the pan. The real question is, does this roster have the guts to build a culture, or is it doomed to become another cycle of wasted talent? Talk to me, you die-hard fans. Does this feel more like 2012 to you or more like 2017?